Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jason Bent, and today I've got another comparison video for you. The 5 sanders I'm going to be discussing is first the ETS EC 155, the Festool RTS 400, the Festool Rotex 90, the Festool Rotex 125, and then finally this is the ETS 125. Yes, it has this adapter on it, which I'll talk about here in a minute. This is the very first Festool item that I purchased. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of just going to cover a variety of topics on this and kind of share with you guys what I use each one for, certain features of them and what exactly that means and how it relates to how I use them. And then towards the end, I'm going to make my recommendation on which one I think is the best bang for your buck and the best overall sander. And the main reason I'm doing this video is to really answer the most common question that I get, and that's how I'm going to close this video out. If I could only get one, which one would it be and why? So let's just go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to talk about is the stroke size and the difference between all of these sanders. So the stroke size on the ETS 125 is 2 millimeters. Same thing with the RTS 400. Then going into the Rotex 90, we have a 3 millimeter stroke. Going into the Rotex 125, excuse me, I believe it's a 3.6 millimeter stroke. And then going into the ETS EC 150/5, it's a 5 millimeter stroke, hence the /5. If it was /3, it would be the 3 millimeter stroke. Now, why is the stroke size important? Think of it like this. The larger the stroke size, the more aggressive and the faster that sander is going to be able to remove material. Now, with that being said, the fastest sander on this table to remove material are these, more specifically the Rotex 125, just because it has a larger pad. These are super aggressive in rotary mode, but when they're in random orbit mode, this will remove material faster than these will, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. Now, with these being a 2 millimeter stroke, can they still remove material? Yes. Are they going to be as fast? No. So what are some use cases where I would use one over the other? So the easiest way for me to understand it, and hopefully I can explain it to you guys, 5-stroke sanding wood, 2-stroke or 3-stroke sanding finishes or something delicate. Can you sand bare wood with the 3? Of course you can. This is going to be faster at removing material. Doesn't mean you can't do it with this. I could sand an entire tabletop with this 2-stroke sander and get really good results. It just might take a lot longer than if I was to use this. So 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna reach for this, which is the more aggressive sander, larger stroke, no problem, sanding regular wood pieces. Where I might reach for a smaller stroke size is if I'm sanding something very small, delicate. A really good example of that would be a sheet of plywood that has a very thin veneer, which is more and more common, it seems like these days. Could you do it with this? 100%. Yes, you could. You just got to be a little bit more careful because you don't want to burn through that veneer, and this might have a tendency to get to that point a little bit quicker, seeing as how it's a little bit more aggressive. Now, what do I use each one of these sanders for? Well, the ETS 125 for a very long time was my finish sander. I pretty much removed everything with the Rotex, went up to about 120 grit. Then I picked up the ETS 125 and I just went to town and sanded all the way up to 180, 220, 320, whatever sanding grit I went to. Great sander. But then I got the ETS EC, and then Festool came out with this new edge sanding attachment. And so now I pretty much exclusively use this for edge treatments, or if I wanted to sand, say a bevel, you can set this to 45 degrees. So it's really kind of just become a very specific purpose. Overall, I think it's a great sander. I think the reason why people are so interested in this sander is because it is the lowest price point of the sanding line. So it's a good way to get into the Festool ecosystem at a relatively low cost. And then now with this edge sanding attachment, it expands its capabilities even more. For example, you can get this sander and this for like $300 for the set, and I can have a great finish sander, and I can have the ability to do edges and all that other stuff. So overall, great package, great sander, small stroke, may take you a while if it was your only sander. The next one is the RTS 400, and what I use this one for primarily, this is relatively new to my shop, but what I really like about this one is getting into corners. And it has this guard on it, which you can take this guard off, maybe, if I can do it one-handed. Here, let's do this. You can slide this guard off here, and then if I need to put it back on, I can just clip it back on. But it's really nice because you can get like right up into the corners, and it sands everything really well. So it's great for that kind of stuff. One other thing that I really like about it is if I am doing edges on something small and I don't want to pull this out, this is actually a lot easier for me to balance on that edge. And that's something I really, really like about it. It's also great if you're doing drawer boxes and you want to get inside the drawer box and make sure you get all those corners and all the vertical surfaces. It's a great sander. It's not the most used by any means in my shop, but it's very handy when I do use it. And this one is roughly the same price as the ET. I think this is like 230 bucks. Not a bad price for that sander. Then we have the Rotex 90 and the Rotex 125. And so I'll first start by talking about the Rotex 90. This has the Rotex mode and random orbit mode. And it also has a detail sanding head attachment mode for the triangular shaped head. You can actually swap this head out, put that on there, and get really, really tight into corners. And so that's really nice. That is a feature about the Rotex 90. It's not something that's available on the Rotex 125, obviously. But again, this is just used for different things. Me personally, what I love this sander for and why I have it is I think it's great for sanding down face frames on cabinets, especially if you're trying to refinish something and it's painted. I can get really aggressive, get that paint off, then I can smooth it out with the random orbit mode. If I need to get tight into corners, I can swap that head out. Another thing that this is also fantastic for is if you are looking to start going down the path of like shaping wood, say for pieces for a chair or something like that. With a soft pad on it, this is actually a really, really good tool to do that. Another great sander, just has a very special purpose. Do not use it all that much, but when I need it, it's great. Rotex 125. You're in rotary mode. This thing is an absolute beast. It is incredible how quickly it can remove material. It's just a fantastic sander. It really does a good job. Random orbit mode, I never really used it in random orbit mode, to be honest with you. I think the main reason for that is because I would usually go through the first couple of grits trying to get everything flat and remove all the material, and then I was reaching for my ETS 125. I have used the random orbit mode. I find it's a little bit more difficult to control, but I'll save that for the next portion. And then this one, the ETS 150/5, I use this for 95% of all sanding that I do, especially now. It is a phenomenal sander. And let's just start talking about form factor, right? And how they feel. One of the things that I tell people that are interested in buying one of these Festool sanders is I can sit here and talk to you about these things all day long until I'm blue in the face. But until you get your hands on them and actually get to see how they feel, that might sway your decision. The reason I say that is because that happened to me. I originally went there with the intention on purchasing the ETS EC 125/3. Started using it, felt like, okay, it's pretty nice. Something feels a little weird about it. I felt like the hose was kind of pulling back, on it a little bit. And I was like, hey, let me try the ETS 125. And then I think the guy looked at me and he was like, oh, you're just doing that because it's less expensive. Well, it was a huge bonus, but when I used it, I actually liked, this is the RTS, but it's the same body style. I actually liked how high up it was, and I also liked how it felt like it just stayed where it needed to stay. So I ended up buying that. Fast forward a few years, had the opportunity to really get a chance to use these quite a bit more. The majority of the stuff that I do, I'm using this, especially now. Only time I'm using the Rotex now, the only time I'm using it is if I need to get really aggressive really quick. More specifically, if it's like a tabletop glue up. I love to, get everything nice and smooth, remove any material. If I have glue squeeze out that I missed, this thing is great, it'll do it. But I find myself using this less and less because I have this. Now, in terms of form factor, this one's great, right? Low center of gravity, just feels good, very little vibration. The pad stops almost instantaneously. Well, and then you got these. You can use this for both, aggressive and random orbit mode. However, it's a large sander. Same thing with this one. Right? This is not the best sander to get into tight spaces. I think it's the best sander to remove material, for sure. Another feature to these that you can actually do is you can use these to polish things. You can use these to apply finishes. There's a lot of different things that you can do with these sanders. Overall, the capabilities of these, I think, are phenomenal. However, everyday use in a woodworking shop, I don't know if I would want to use this to be sanding my rails and stiles for a door, or for a face frame, or for something like that, right? Because, while I can control this with one hand, I couldn't always control it with one hand. It takes a little while to get used to. Will it do both jobs? Yes. Is it the most enjoyable to use for both jobs? No, right? Only because of the size. But I don't care if you're getting a sander that has the capabilities of this, they're all gonna be that way. They're all very large, right? They're all, if it has a rotary mode on it, they're all going to be similar to this. But for smaller things, I just found that I wasn't using it. So again, that goes back to the conversation about getting these things in your hand, seeing how you can get into it. The Rotex 90, a little bit easier to fit in some tight places. But this, coupled with a hose and the power cable and all that stuff, some situations it can be kind of difficult. With these last two, the ETS 125 and the RTS, they're both very similar body style. I think they're great. They feel fantastic. They just work very well. They're very light. It's like 2.4 pounds, I think, for each one of them. Great sander overall. I can pretty much use this in any scenario, and I'm totally fine. Big or small, obviously, might just take a little bit longer because it's a 2mm stroke as opposed to something more aggressive. So that covers all the topics that I really wanted to cover. And to close this out, now I will answer the question of if I could only recommend one sander, which one would it be and why? For me, this is really easy. I'll try to not drag this on. It's the ETS EC 150/5. This would be the one, right? Not only if it's your only one, having the ability to be more aggressive, to remove the material a little bit faster, it's your only sander, you would still have the ability to have a really, really great finish. The 5-stroke, 100%. On top of that, 6-inch. If I had to do it all over again, I would have never invested in 5-inch sanders. I would have only gone with the 6-inch sander because, believe it or not, it does make a drastic difference in sanding. I didn't think it did at first, but the more I use them and the more opportunities I've had to do it, comparing the two, 6-inch is fantastic. Now, with that being said, if you already have a 5-inch Festool sander and you have a ton of paper for it, it may not make the most sense for you to upgrade, but I would still say upgrade. And that's coming from somebody that has two 5-inch sanders still. What I will say is that if I had to do it all over again, I would have gone 6-inch, but I promise you I would have bought a 5-inch after this edge sanding attachment came out, and I would have bought this sander because of what it does. This is the reason why I have not upgraded this to a 6-inch, because I still have all the paper for this. I don't use the Rotex nearly as much anymore because I have this. And the last thing I'll say is when I say because I have this, I don't use the Rotex very much anymore, this pales in comparison to this in rotary mode. I just want to make that clear. I'm in no way saying that I don't like the Rotex, but if you have this in Rotex mode, I'm saying this is more aggressive. This will blow it out of the water still. So that's why I was saying, if you need something to get really aggressive, that's your guy. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I know that one might have been a little bit long, but again, it's 5 sanders, and I'm trying to share my experience and my thoughts on each one of them with you guys to help you kind of make the best, most informed decision, and then have a place where I can divert people that ask me this question, which happens almost on a daily basis at this point. So hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you guys have any questions about these sanders or anything else, or you guys have a recommendation, please leave them down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys, or you can go over to Instagram at Bessey Woodworking. You can find me there. You can send me a DM, or you can go to my website. There's a million different ways that you can get a hold of me. I really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, get out in the shop, try something new, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.